no matter which meaning I attached to that, if I had held that meaning for the rest of my life, I would have acted in a way that was a self-perpetuating destructive pattern or a self-perpetuating productive pattern.
Mr. Joshua is going to be giving our motivational moment. So he is the director of talent acquisition. A good number of people in the company are here because of Josh, and he's actually currently on the year the top installer for the company, or top sales rep for the company. So he's been doing pretty good consistently. So we're excited to hear from him. This is his first motivational moment, and he's been here since June or July of last year. So we're excited to hear from Josh and hear what nuggets of wisdom he has to share with us.
All right, good morning, everyone. I wanted to put this together for you for this morning. I wanted to share with you something that I consider our superpower, and something that specifically has helped me immensely in my life, and I still actively use to basically ward off a ton of negativity. We all have bad things happen to us. We all have difficult things. And I find that this key thing, this key superpower, is specifically something that can turn something negative into a positive. And that's what is very important to do, especially in regards to this job. So what the superpower is our ability to choose a meaning to what something is. And what I mean by that, when something happens to us, typically our subconscious, which is our operating system within our minds, will basically take the stimulus of what is happening, whether it's good or bad, quote unquote, it runs it through this filter. What comes out the other side is a meaning. And typically people are not actively, consciously choosing what the meaning is that something is that they're experiencing. Therefore, a lot of times we will just run through inferior filters, and the cat is jumping on the table. Perfect. So we will typically run through an inferior filter what something means, and then it will not be for our benefit what comes out the other side. So here's what I mean by all this. When we attach a meaning to something, we will then begin to act in a way that creates a self-fulfilling prophecy and a feedback loop to reinforce what we believe this means. And a lot of times, whatever we thought that it means will come to fruition, whether good or bad, with the way of which we choose the meaning. So here's an example. I built a business. It took almost about 8 years really in total, but it took about 6 years of really going hard to make this business happen, really make this build from the ground up. I was living with my parents way back when, and my Xbox broke. Instead of bringing it somewhere, I looked up online how to fix it. So I learned how to fix it. That eventually developed to me fixing friends of mine Xboxes. From there, I started to learn about computers. I hired a kid to teach me about how to build computers, and I built out of my parents' home, I had a table downstairs, and I built a way of building computers, and I eventually opened an eBay store. From there, I started to make business cards. I think I was like 17 or 18 at the time, and I started to realize I was making more money from doing that than working a 9-to-5 job. So at this time, I had 3 jobs, all of which were not making much money, but this was making me a lot of money on the side. And so I built that, and eventually I moved out of my parents' house. I took over an apartment, and I made the garage an entire storefront. I literally made the garage a storefront. Took it from being, just like basically just a normal garage like you'd think about, and I put in shelving, I put in a carpet, I put in a place for clients, an office area. This was all pushed into a garage. Eventually, I took over a building in town, and it had 2 floors on it, and I opened up what was called Trusted Relations Computer Clinic. This computer business was everything to me, this technology-based solutions company. I thought it was what I'm going to do the rest of my life. That was the meaning I attached to it, and I put everything I had into it. And the thing was, I was a young business owner at the time. I didn't quite know what I was doing, and I ended up just, I put everything I had into it, and the profit margin just kept going down. And at the time, there was some health stuff going on with me that, you know, I didn't know was brewing in the background. And what happened is, as time went on with that business, it got harder and harder and harder to keep it afloat. I buried myself in that business. I put every dime I had, I sold everything that I could out of my house just to be able to pay my guys, because it was so important to me for them and their families to be able to eat, kind of forget myself, right? Because I wanted to take care of them. And the business just made less and less money. I had way too many employees. I didn't have the amount of money to hire the accountants to show me where the leaks were in the business. And the thing was, I had put in 6 years of effort to this business. By the time it finally went under, what had happened is that I lost almost everything, including my sanity, trying to run this business. And I eventually got, I'm making light of all this, just fill this in with, like, you know, a lot of anguish, but I ended up losing where I lived. I actually got evicted because I couldn't make the rent. I ended up losing the business. I remember I got a video of me walking around and pointing at things in the business being like, this was supposed to be this. This was supposed to mean that this was where Tom's station was going to be. This was where Jason's, you know, was going to be building the computers in the background or whatever. You know, and I went throughout the whole business. I was crying, and it really broke me as a individual at the time. And the thing was, is that I was so frazzled and I was so messed up by that time. I would have ended up homeless had I not had somewhere to go. But where I went to go was basically some form of a war zone, not a very positive place, to say the least. And I lived on a porch for 2.5 years after that. I couldn't afford insurance. I couldn't make anything really meet in my life. I had major health issues at this time because my health had gotten so far away from me. I did not have any money, and I remember I would just cry often. You know, and I had like $7 in my bank account at many times and stuff like that, and I was scrimping and trying to get anything I could to make anything happen. But I was a wreck for 2.5 years. So with that said, I could look at that like a failed business. I could look at that like a failure. The meaning of which I was attaching to that at the time was that I had failed. The meaning of which I was attaching to it was that I had failed in a business sense. I was a nobody. I had given up the last 6 years of my life for nothing. And the thing was, is that I could attach a positive or a negative meaning to this, what had happened to me. And on the negative side, I could have said for the rest of my life, I'm a failure in business. I'm always going to be a failure. I've lost everything. I'm super in debt. I was like $43,000 in debt. Can't afford insurance on my truck. Can't do anything, right? I'm a failure. Or if I had had the conscious wherewithal back then, I could have looked at it and given it a different meaning. And the meaning could have been, I went to the school of hard knocks for 6 years. I built a business that at one time somewhat thrived, had a great name in the community. I had made incredible network connections in myself and in my professional development. I learned a ton about business, ton about psychology, ton about selling, ton about running a company and being a leader to people. And the thing is that no matter which meaning I attached to that, if I had held that meaning for the rest of my life, I would have acted in a way that was a self-perpetuating destructive pattern or a self-perpetuating productive pattern. And in regards to that, one is going to build me up and one is just going to have me take the victimhood, you know, for the rest of the life and such, and just continue to go down a route that maybe I don't want to be on, but I didn't believe in myself. The reason I share this story with you guys, this job is hard. It's the easiest, hardest job you're ever going to have, but there is a lot of struggles. There's a lot of growth that you're going to have to experience. There's a lot of things that you're going to have to overcome to do this job, and there is a ton of stuff that's going to knock you down, and it will keep you there if you let it. But it's the meaning of which you attach to things that is going to designate whether you're going to overcome it or you're going to stay down and eventually head out. And what I mean by that is that when a customer cancels on you, or you knock a door and you get a horrible person who makes you feel bad about yourself, or you have something take place that just makes you feel crappy, or you lose a whole bunch of deals of money you were counting on, every time there's something that uncomfortable that happens to you, you have to look at it like a call of action. And it's a call of action to grow. It's a call of action to get closer with management here. It's a call of action to self-develop yourself more, to be able to come back even stronger and be able to overcome whatever it is that knocked you down. And every time you don't believe in yourself, it's a call to action to talk to somebody who does. Every time you get depressed, or anytime you have anything happen whatsoever that's going to be a potential negative, if you attach a meaning to it, you have to attach a meaning that is enriching. Because no matter what, unless you're planning on giving up in life, you've got to put a meaning on things that is positive. It's always positive, it's always endearing, it's always enriching, never destructive. And if you keep attaching those meanings to things, you'll continue to rise, because I tell you guys, you would not recognize me 3 years ago. And I've come an incredibly long way, as many of us have. But it's by attaching these meanings that have a positive and seeing progress, not problems, and having that be the focal point of what we see that will help us to overcome things, especially in this job or in your life in general. So I really hope that you can take, what I said this morning, and I hope that it is helpful to you, and you can become conscious of the stimulus that happens to us and put a meaning to it that is enriching and endearing to the life which you want to live. Always positive. Just keep heading in the right direction, and put that meaning that is going to get you to where you want to be.
Awesome, Josh. Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts. We are all enriched by the words of wisdom that you dropped on us. Thank you so much for that.
Don't put me on your level. I am not like you, I'm not gonna settle. Body bag, got a right tag, I'll be right back. Rip off that mask, slip on that glass.